COD killer this, COD killer that. How about you, COD, give me a break right now? Right now, we're seeing, a little bit of buzz in the gaming landscape as we're seeing cries of the COD killer coming down from the heavens and killing COD, as in the fish. And, I just want to make a little video and say, no, it's not going to kill COD. Okay? Look, I've talked about it a lot in the past with different games, but there is no game that can really kill another game. The only thing that can kill another game is the game itself. And so, looking at XDefiant and saying, which that's the game I'm talking about, and saying, this is the COD killer. This feels just like old COD. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. Like, I feel like that's actually a very negative way to look at it. And I feel like having this negative way to look at it is going to have negative repercussions for the game later on. And you might be saying, Isor, I don't know what you're talking about. Saying this is a COD killer is hyping this game up. But then I will gladly gesture you towards the big wall of other games that were supposed to come along and, replace other games before. Like you had Overwatch supposed to be the TF2 killer, or, geez, Multiversus Smash killer. I wonder if I've talked about that before. There's all these examples that are out there, and all the games that they were supposed to take care of are still up and going. And in a lot of other cases, the game that was supposed to be the killer was the killeed. So, yeah. Why am I making a video about this? Well, clearly I don't have more than just this to say about it, because if this is all I would say, I would just post on Twitter, get 2 likes, and call it a day. Now, I just wanted to talk a video and just talk about, like, what's a better way to look at this sort of thing, is because most definitely XDefiant is supposed to do something with COD. It's supposed to take that market space. It's supposed to share some of its audience. I mean, there's former COD developers. You had former content creators make content. You had all of these little pieces going in that where if you were to look at it and say, no, this has nothing to do with trying to take over COD, you would be wearing a hat that said, I'm stupid. Please give me a hat that says I'm stupid, because clearly XDefiant is trying to step on the toes of COD. And, speaking of stepping on the toes, maybe that's the word I would use to describe it. Not COD killer, COD toe stepper. How's that sound? COD toe stepper. And I'm not saying this in defense of COD. I think the latest COD is just okay, and the game before that was awful. And the game before that I actually really liked. But then the game before that I thought was just okay. And then the game before... Anyway, you get the point, guys. You get the point. But what I'm trying to say is that XDefiant can succeed, and I think it will succeed, and I hope it does succeed. But whatever it will do, the only thing that can kill COD is if Activision decides to stop publishing it someday. Because for a game like COD, as long as it exists, there's going to be teenagers there to play it. We as a community should look at that sort of situation and recognize that calling it a COD killer is just setting it up for failure. If we're really wanting this change and we're wanting this alternative and we're wanting this game that feels just like the games we love, setting it up for failure isn't really what we should be doing. We should be propping it up as an example of what we as players want to see in our gaming experiences, right? Now, I've talked a lot about the energy surrounding the game, but I haven't really talked about the game itself. So let me just describe it to you for a second or two here. Now, I've played it. I watched somebody else play it for 30 minutes. I got me that code. I hooked it up, and I'm going to say I think that it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The gameplay, the gunplay, all of it feels straight out of like that old arcade shooter feel for COD, and that's what I would want. Those are the things I really enjoy about COD. I am a big fan of pace in video games. I like it when things are up tempo. I like things are quick, when moment to moment gameplay happens very quickly. And XDefiant can definitely do that. It definitely has the potential to do that, and I feel like it's happening most of the time. There's a few bits of slowdown in some of those modes, but that's par for the course. Like, you can't have it when you're playing with random people. It's hard to have a perfect pace every single time because things are random. It's varied. That's what you want, because if it was the same thing every time, you'd get bored. Shoo, shoo. So, um, yeah, I was having a little bit of control. I will admit, I didn't have the most fun with it, but it was mainly because I was having trouble with my controls. And it wasn't like the controls were hard to navigate and the settings were blah, 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 blah. No. All the settings were pretty good. There was a lot of options. There was an ADS multiplier, so you can increase your horizontal or decrease your horizontal sensitivity and vertical as well. Um, Whenever you're using ADS. So that was good. But my problem was I was really having trouble like getting that sensitivity where I wanted it. I was having a lot of trouble with aiming. But the actual gameplay, the gunplay, the abilities, it's all there. I will say sometimes the movement feels a bit weird. Like mantling and just jumps in general feel kind of weird. They feel a bit stilted. Like it feels like jump, woo, ha. Like it feels delayed almost. And like the mantle, it seems like there's no like smoothness to it. You're just where you're jumping and then boom, you mantled. It feels a bit choppy. It feels a bit chunky. But otherwise, I really liked it. I really liked it. I think it has a lot of potential. I think the network could use a little bit of help. Like it felt a bit laggy. I've been hearing a lot of other people saying it's been a bit laggy. And oh my goodness, 14 maps in an open beta. Might just make me bust. Like having that many maps in an open beta almost that's crazy, because that's more than like modern CODs have on launch. So having all that in this open beta test period is absolutely bonkers to the wonker donkers. I'm just saying random stuff and hoping it sounds nice. But with that in mind, there was a lot of variation. There was a lot of content to experience. Something where like I won't give like a true review of the game because I didn't experience it all. There was a lot to go into. There was a lot of guns. There was a lot of maps. There was a lot of mode. Well, there was like 4 modes, but like playing the different maps with different modes. I was a little upset that there was just no basic team deathmatch. And I might be I'm a little bit of a like white bread dork for that. Usually I like to play modes like domination or what do they call hardpoint, occupy and stuff like that. Like usually I would play those modes preferably, but since I was trying to like experience the gunplay and specifically get better with the aim sensitivity and like really figure out where I want to be with it, having it at just on those objective modes made it very difficult to get better at the actual gunplay itself. But that's a very specific nitpick. But overall, anyways, it's a good game. I might be saying that it won't be like a COD killer. Like COD's not gonna survive. It's not like COD's gonna take a dip. Like even though this is like a huge like game right now, it's still COD hasn't even took like a tiny little dent on Steam charts. So what we should be doing is not focusing on how it could defeat COD, just focus on enjoying the game, thinking of the game of its own. Even though it's borrowing a lot of elements from COD, understand how can it use that to make an experience that's uniquely its own. And on top of that, how can we make it succeed on its own without trying to make it competing with something that is a really hard opponent to beat when it's a game that just released yearly and just kind of just no sells any troubles it has and just makes a lot of money. And the part where I mentioned like, oh, making sure it stands on its own, XDefiant is a really unique game. And that's really weird to say. The maps feel unique. They feel genuine, even though they're all just 3-lane. They all feel really granular. They feel unique. They feel fresh. I really like the maps. Sometimes I don't like all the running you have to do. Like sometimes it's a 3-lane map, and some maps has like a wider distance to get into the action. And that's a nitpick for me. Some people like those sort of like long things. They like the little consequence to death, or they like the ability to kind of stay back from afar. I like to get into the action quicker. Some of the maps felt like it's a little bit of a chore to get back into the center, to get back into the gunfight and all that. But aside from that, all the maps felt and played well. I really liked it. There was a lot of verticality, a lot of like maps with two-story elements, especially on the like domination mode. Like a lot of times the center one will either be on a first or second story, and so you can kind of use the opposite story as like a sort of like flank position. Um yeah, that's my thoughts of the X Defiant, and that's why I think about people labeling a game as an X killer, you know? Like that's just kind of it's a tired point. It just gives everybody like a moan and groan, you know? Like why you keep saying that?